Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be comparing a $2,000 studio setup to a $100 one. So recently I had a chance to compare two extreme light setups. They were both one light, but they were quite different price points. One was around $2,000 and the other one was about $100. So as you can see, the difference is quite different. On one side I had a Profoto light with a Profoto umbrella that comes up to around $2,000 give or take, and on the other side I had an Amazon ring light that my makeup artist had that costs around $100. From the get-go I know that the setups are quite different. One is a strobe setup and the other one is a continuous light setup. However, as somebody who's been on a studio budget that is really tight for a very long time, I thought that you would appreciate me shooting with a ring light and just showing you how it compares to an actual flash. Both layouts required quite a different camera setup. I had to make sure to adjust the kelvins, especially the temperature, because it was quite different for both of them. When I was shooting with the strobe, I had to pick up my kelvins quite a lot, so I was around the 6,000 kelvins. But when I was shooting with the ring light, I had to turn it down quite a lot, otherwise the images were extremely warm and just really odd looking, and it just didn't work at all. I had to keep my f quite high on both of them just to make sure that I'm getting a good depth of field in both images. I didn't want any detail to be lost or the images to look like they weren't really taken in the studio. So obviously for the ring light, because it's a continuous light and it's not as strong as flash, I had to boost my ISO a tiny bit. I still found that the light was quite strong, so I didn't have to go too high, but I obviously did have to go a bit higher than when the studio flash. When it comes to the ring light, I personally love the softness it gives me and how it makes the catch lights look. I think the skin looks really glowy and angelic, and there is just something about this look that is just so flattering for the face. You just can't take a bad photo using a ring light, I swear. I was trying really hard, but every single one looks really nice, and the light is so beautiful and soft, and in general it's just such a nice light. However, I find that with that light you don't get as much brightness as I mentioned, so you have to compensate it with your camera settings. You need to boost your ISO and lower your aperture, which is not ideal when it comes to beauty lighting, because you want to get as much detail and as much sharpness in the image as possible. Because of that, you kind of lose the skin detail, as I said, and sometimes the images end up looking a bit soft, which is not ideal, especially for close-up beauty and especially for macro beauty. I find it's really hard to get a good macro beauty shot just because of that. It can also be quite tricky for the models to keep her eyes open, because the light is quite bright and it is shining in her face, so it can be kind of tricky for her to keep her eyes open, especially for a prolonged period of time. So at the beginning it might be fine, and then she might start getting tired and kind of getting blinded by the light, so you just have to keep that in mind and shoot in quite short periods of time. On the other hand, you have the Profoto setup, which I love. Profoto is an amazing light. It's one of the top, and the price unfortunately reflects it. As some of you know, it's quite an expensive light. It has an amazing recycling time though. It works so fast, so you can just fire away the shots, which is amazing. You can work on f8, f10, whatever you want. So you're not losing any detail, and you're always getting really pin sharp images, which is great. However, saying that, it is quite difficult to work with flash in general. It requires much more knowledge, and you have to really know what you're doing to get the right kind of look. It's very easy to mess up your lighting by not setting up your flash correctly, not kind of getting the light exposure, not getting the right distance from the model, and so on. It's just there's so many little technical details that can go wrong. With your ring light, what you see is what you get, because that's the kind of lighting. There's no flash, there's nothing else involved, so you can kind of get an idea of what you're doing and how you're doing it. But with the strobe, you end up flashing, and then you can only see what the photo looks like, so it's always a bit of a gamble, and as I said, it does require much more knowledge to get it right. And I personally even find when I was shooting between the two of them, I kind of preferred shooting with the ring light, because I could see exactly what I was getting, and with the flash. Sometimes I just wasn't getting the right angles in the light, or the light wasn't close enough or far enough. A lot of you are just starting in the studio, and I know it can be quite frustrating with the setups and so on. So in general, I think I would pick the Profoto only because of the amount of detail and being able to shoot macro and so on. However, saying that, I really adore the ring light setup. I think it's such a flattering light for anybody. It brings out the highlights beautifully. It makes the face look really glowy and lovely. And in general, it's just a really, really nice light to try. And I mean, the price difference is just insane. So, you know, it's only around $99 or $100. So it's something that most of us would probably be able to afford. And you know, if you can play around with that, you can get an idea of shooting in the studio, you can build a startup portfolio, and you can kick off your entire career. So why not give it a go? You know, sometimes, you know, working with natural light is not ideal, but here you have that extra help of that ring light, so I think it's definitely worth using it. So what do you guys think? Which light setup do you prefer? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.